feeling of loneliness and looking at it as a positive thing, we can think about solitude. Because from developmental point of view, we know that children are different. Some of them need lots of friends, and some of them, even with one friend, one good friend, are satisfied. And we know also the dynamic, the paradoxical dynamic, that no one is lonely all the time or with friends all the time. We move from being close to others and separated to others. So in some ways, what Samir said, it was very important. In our language as educators and psychologists, it means awareness to loneliness is the first step, very important step, towards intervention, towards knowing to make the child aware what is the problem, and then trying to find a solution, and not one solution is good for the others. For some of them is developing the ability to be solitude, to be with themselves, to meet themselves, to see who they are in their community. For others is to find ways to develop social relationship and relatedness to some community. So in some ways, we are coming from different disciplines, but we are giving different names to the same process. And thank you very much. It was very interesting to see how from the Greek time, we are exactly dealing with the same problems and finding different solutions, that some of them are good and some of them are not so good for our time. And let's hope for better times.
Thank you, Malka. That's very helpful, and I appreciate your perspective. This is really important, and I don't want to confuse solitude, loneliness, and its analogs, as I was saying, but I do want to invoke them. And in my talk, I suggested that one option that Antigone does not have is solitude. Yes. She doesn't have solitude as an option. She has loneliness, she has alienation, she has exile, like her father, but she doesn't have solitude. Solitude is a kind of organic wholeness and fullness of oneself. So I was trying to invoke this idea that it's actually a form of chosen loneliness. She does feel, she does miss her sister Ismene. She loves her sister. She says, at least in Jean Anouilh's version of Antigone, she does say, "I will never have children. I'm giving up Haman, my fiance. I'm giving up a life. I'm giving up my future. But what for? What is it for?" And in that sense, I think what it's for is the ethical. To give up something that is precious to you, your own life. She's giving up her life, literally. She's being immured in a cave. To do that is to take a kind of ethical position. I mean, it's a throwing away of your life. And to that extent, I mean, there's a kind of ethical decision behind it. It's a rational, but also
rational or pathological decision. You know,
it's literally
depends what is your profession.
It's literally anti-patriotic, but it's also patriotic because it's true to Oedipus, but it's untrue to Creon.
Exactly. It's complicated. It means that being human is complicated. It's not simple.
It is. I don't think Helen Lees is going to make it any less complicated, but will make it more interesting, I think. Helen, you have your hand up. We can't hear you, Helen.
I'm sorry. I was just wondering, in terms of alienation, what you think that has on the available structures of thought that allow us to feel and understand what the ethical might be. Because if you are thrown out of the given structures or the accepted structures of how to think, what to think, and to what end to think, then you are going to be either thinking very differently, and in what sense, or on what is that grounded, and what does it mean that that's not grounded on the common thought because of your alienation? You know, what is your response to that situation of the decoupling of one's thinking in alienation from the given?
I would say in a shorthand, Oedipus and Marx. So Oedipus, because Oedipus, it is only when he becomes an exile that he sees what he has done. It is only when it is revealed to him the truth of what Tiresias, the blind seer, sees, that he understands his own crime, and he puts out his own eyes so that he cannot see anymore. But this putting out of your own eye is, for me, a kind of alienation from belonging. So that's one thing, that Oedipus only sees that he has married his mother and killed his father, that when it's too late. But that is the essence of the Greek tragedy, that the hero must go through peripeteia and anagnorisis to be able to see his hamartia, right? And it's only in that moment of alienation from himself, from his community, that he is given the vision that Tiresias has. It is only when Tiresias is blinded that he's given his sight. It's only when Tiresias is alienated from himself that he sees. So that's the Oedipus piece of it. I would say with Marx, and through Marx, as I say, with Adorno, there is a sense that without alienation, you do not have the critical distance. So you are extimate to your own society. You are excluded from it because you are an intellectual. If you're only within it, then with Althusser, you would have to say you are a complete prisoner of ideology. It is only when you see that you are a goldfish in a bowl swimming in water that you can ask the question, what is water? So I'm suggesting that the goldfish can only understand water when she is alienated. And the intellectual can only understand ideology in the Althusserian sense, or the Marxian sense, when one is able to sort of step outside it. Marx can only write about alienation when he alienates himself from the bourgeois society. The bourgeois can only rid himself of his bourgeois mentality when he undergoes a revolution. So I don't know if that addresses your question, that yes, you have to extricate yourself from society, you have to be alienated to be able to see the constraints of your society. But at the same time, this is the way that through your positive exclusion, society can establish itself as an ideological system. And the ideological system always has what I will call excrements or excrescences. And among these are intellectuals and outsiders and non-citizens. You cannot have citizenship, you cannot have nation without borders, without passports, without kind of regulation of who belongs and who is an outsider, who is an insider, who is an outsider, and so on. What is dirty, what is not dirty, you know, to use Mary Douglas's anthropological lens, there is always a sense that you do not know what is clean and edible if you do not know what is poisonous and dirty. So in that sense that you do need some kind of exclusion. And my question is whether there is a way for you to be an organic intellectual, if you like. Can you be both within the system and a critic of it? Can you be inside the whale and critique it, like Job?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose in connection with other questions, and maybe I'm helping in a small sense, which is that alienation is ethical in that you do not perpetuate nor perpetrate wrong thinking by virtue of being outside and having and being forced to think with new tools of thought because of your distance and your exclusion from constructed, and they are always going to be constructed, ways of understanding the world. So in that sense, alienation becomes an ethical situation on account of new thinking. Precisely.
But you have to admit that there is a cost. You will be seen as an outsider. If you wear spectacles in Mao's Cultural Revolution, you will be killed. if you are not part of the demos, the kind of unthinking, if I may say, the kind of non-critical masses, you will become a target. So you are going to be an outsider in that sense. But I agree with you completely in your construction that you do have to have that critical distance, and your goal is not to do harm, of course. Your goal is to be able to see how one can avoid harms within the society.
Wow. I have rarely been called an excrescence with such elegance, Samir. This will run and run. There is much to be said about. I would want to, and there isn't time now, but I would want to ask about. There are those who alienate themselves, as one might say, in the wrong direction. It is not always the wonderful, creative, good, loyal, or whatever people who alienate themselves from the norms. It is also the murderers and the evil, and that it is not in itself. I know that's not what Helen was saying, but it's not in itself automatically an ethical or good position to take to alienate.
Absolutely, yourself. I couldn't agree more.
But I would like to. I'll try and work on in praise of orthodoxy, and I've written about that before. That there should be ways of being within to being an orthodox person who is also a critical person. I think there should be, but it's a struggle. We've got to the end. Oh, sorry.
Within the belly of the whale.
Yes, yes. Where else can we live? Jonah might once have said. I appreciate the whale did alienate him in the end. How fascinating. We've had a day, such a rich day, and we put in the period at the end to summarize. I actually think, Samir, you and in the discussion, and all the people who've taken part have managed to summarize a whole range of dialectics or conflicts or ambiguities, rich ideas, from literature, from politics, from art, from philosophy, and from science. And thank you. That was a wonderful way to conclude the first of 2 days. And we will be coming back for more at 9 o'clock Polish time tomorrow morning. And can I thank everyone who's presented, everyone who's questioned, everyone, and particularly, can I say, in honor of Dat's talk, everyone who has been silent and learning, and everyone who protesting with their silence, as well as everyone who has been talking and contributing. It's been fascinating for me. Can I ask Gosia and Rafa if you have any other things to say at the end of today's day, or anyone else to say at the end? I will thank Samir right at the end of what I'm saying for his talk on all our behalf. But anything else to say as we get to the end of our day? Gosia.
I think we are very grateful for the first day. So we wish everyone a wonderful afternoon, and we wish us all keeping in mind what was happening today and gaining these inspirations. And of course, we are inviting for tomorrow for the second day of our conference.
Thank you, Gosia. And Henrietta, sorry we interrupted you.
I've seen that it's a hand raised, and I think it's Helen Lees.
I think that was raised for when she asked her question before. I think it's just stayed up there. You're welcome, Helen, to say something again. Well, on all, Rafa.
I stop recording now, okay?
So I will say nothing